think that's for me the best point to be in painting, not having too much control, not too much chaos, something in between where it can go both directions. That's where I often experience the most, the best paintings come out for me. Some years ago I changed my work process drastically. I think I would describe myself back then as a classical, the German term is a Malerschwein, just paint on top of each other and build the painting up and then fight with the figure until it fits, erase the head, paint it again, and it was fun, but I've always experienced that the best paintings for me were the ones where they somehow finish themselves by accident. Thorvaldsen as a Danish sculpturist is, for the Danish people well known, but for the rest of Europe I guess he's a bit forgotten. But if you ask me what Thorvaldsen means to me, it actually came quite random to me. I mean, I was strolling around in the inner city and I found that nice little museum. I actually planned to go make some drawings of some old sculptures in a glyptothek. But there it's very busy, a lot of school classes. They tell you how to carry your chair and what kind of pencils you can use. So I found that little museum where there are only 2 people working, it's empty, and I could spend hours and even take my coffee upstairs. So it was more that which brought me to spend more time with it. Yeah, so quite accidentally actually. So I started being there every week, half day, and just spend some time doing some sketches as a meditative way of improving my drawing skills. Here you see the drawings I make in the museum, and I bring them here, and then here I start already think about colors. So I easily can translate the small pieces into big ones. So here it's a good possibility to see how it would work in big. So it's more like a memo for me. Of course, then I'm interested, I know all the mythology about it, but that's not what I want to transport through the painting. It's not pregnant of meaning, because then I sometimes feel it can suffocate actually the experience. The classical sculptures as they come, they are quite, I always experience them as quite calm. So they leaves for me a lot of space to project something on them or to resonate with them. But this comes maybe with the setting in a museum. When it's empty, it's calm, you have time. So I guess maybe that might be the reason. So it's more related to what state I am when I visit a sculpture. So I do fully abstract paintings in the same size. For this exhibition, this black ink stains, I had like almost a full room covered up, and maybe like a Japanese calligraphy session just stained it. Sometimes together with my ex-wife, with some friends, I wanted to just see to interfere with my skills. So I let the control go, because if I control it, then I go back to where I was. So it's a nice way of having the control parts and the very loose parts. And so with the abstract parts and sewing them together, I'm actually able to surprise myself with color combinations or compositions I wouldn't have thought from the beginning. So it's for me way more pleasurable to get surprised. The colors, in Malerei, in painting, allows to actually puts a figure just a bit besides reality. If you bring them in the unreal color, you start to question them. If it would be just a classical drawing, then you know, okay, that's a sculpture, it's a drawing of a sculpture, and the color often can help to make it pulls it out of reality, not in a fantasy level, but it just puts it a bit off. But I guess I don't think so much about what color I want to use. It's more I do it quite intuitively. Always looking for some off colors. Sometimes for the ugly colors, I get surprised that I like them the most sometimes. So therefore I produce a lot of color, and then I choose at the very end. It's quite naive or childish at the very end. I have the finished paintings and have the big abstract pieces. I cut them and then just lay them on top, and I move them, and then it goes quite fast. Sometimes in 5 seconds I know, oh, that's the wrong color, and I put another color besides it, and then it just matches up sometimes. So it's quite intuitive. I like to switch up. I pour some gips sculptures. I paint with glass color on it. I like the classical drawings, the abstract dyeing fabric with ink, painting on glass. So it's more I think I'm a bit impatient and I like to have a lot of stuff going on so I can distract myself. I made a cast of I bought a original sculpture, a small one, and then I just made a cast just to have her in multiple pieces to see how it looked. Then I painted it, and I like the idea of that it repeats itself into the room. So I guess it was quite a need to take a grab, more of a grab into the room, not fully installationable, but yeah, something which goes into the room. So it's maybe just more an extension of the painting, where the color repeats itself, and the small sculptures can talk to the painting, and the painting talks back to the sculpture. That's it's I think you call it it's Dürer crayons. They're water smuggable, and then I go in there with gesso as like the grisailles as well. So I go. Some of them have like 6 layers of shadow and light. I go over them, but I still try to just make some part realistic, and the rest gets try to be more sketchy, so it doesn't get too full, too perfect and too filled. And then I glaze with acrylic and oil colors on top. That often starts the process of which other color I put on. That's the most pleasurable part for me. I enjoyed so much of having those canvas laying there, and some I brush the color on to control it, but often I sometimes just pour color on and let it float, and then I come back the next day and it has set in a fully different way than expected, and that's where I get surprised, where I really get like, yes, that was good, but also in the opposite, sometimes I destroy a painting, but I like that, that can go both ways. Yeah, it's not one piece at a time, it's mostly a chain or a group of paintings which comes up. It can be everything from a color combination I saw in a piece of a newspaper on the floor. I memorized that, and I've always wanted to have that gray with that blue. It can be a color combination. Sometimes it can, as like going to the Thorwaldsen Museum, I see the figures, and the Thorwaldsen with the very clear marble figures, which are not like the Italian with too much fabric and too much what's the English word? Pynte. Ornamented. It's not too much. They were very reduced, so it was very easy to project something on it. Colors, or sometimes I imagine conversations or something like this. So it can be a lot of things. Yeah. And of course, Düsseldorf Academy, where I'm from, it was exceptional what kind of professors were there. So it was, most professors were my favorite artists, so it was, that was where I learned the most of the conversations with them and getting in touch with them. So it has had quite a repetition. It was an amazing place to be. It's you can smell the past history, so of course it does something to you. I guess drawing or painting when I grew up always was an option, or an option against being bored. So we always had enough material, good paper laying around, but it was nothing I decided back then, or that's what I want to be. I just figured out or found out for myself that it's fills the boring hours for me. It was quite natural then to go more into painting because I could sit there for hours and had something to do. But it was not until my second study I realized, I can study art. So that I painted all the time, but it was not on my screen to as a possibility, even though I never had pressure from my parents. So it was just something which I found out later in my mid-tweens, I guess. Yeah, Deleuze. I mean, it's some philosophy and authors and writers which not direct inspiring me. It's more when I read them, I reflect about, and then I reflect about my process. I think I look more into I'm more process orientated or interested in the process. So it doesn't matter if it's musician, author, philosopher. When it's about processes, I can relate to it very much in my work as well. Lately it's I think it was some years ago I worked on a book together with the author, and she asked me if I want to illustrate her book, a book about cognitive therapy. But I'm not an illustrator, so we managed to find out that maybe it's not a good idea if I illustrate it, but maybe we find another way of working on it together. So she gave me the 7 quotes her book was inspired by, and we were sure enough if those quotes inspired her to write a book, that if I have them long enough here, they somehow will make it into the paintings. So we just let it totally free. And after months, she came here and was here 24 hours without me being here, and had a look at the painting and wrote the last chapter to see what happens. And while we worked on that book, she talked a lot about Deleuze and communication towards a painting, towards a person. And it often matched it up for me that you can, if I'm open and calm and in a state of where I can resonate, I can talk very good to a person. That's the same what happens to the painting. Sometimes the painting is not very talkative. So it's I always was interested in how we look at paintings and how it's influenced by our state of mind, how the experience is, how different the experiences actually can be looking at the painting from one to the other day. So I pick up texts whenever it goes in that direction. So it's Deleuze, but latest is then the Danish writer Kierkegaard, who talks about skrøbelighed, fragility, which I often translate more into vulnerability. And that's what I try to do with those abstract pieces, like not being too crampy and finishing the painting in one big stroke, or I like to get problems or to be open for not be in control, because I felt that whenever I'm in the state in between control or chaos, that's that's the best place for me to be. Then I can go in both ways instead of narrowing myself down to just one part. So it's that's also where the title comes from for the exhibition. Permeability is it can be understood in some different ways. It's basically the ability of a fabric to let things go through it. And this is how I like to see myself in the best state of mind for painting. I don't want to be neither this or that. I want to be the fabric in between who lets things come through. So things land on the paintings when they want to, and they can get back as well. So this is also how I see the paintings in the perfect scenario. A viewer comes to the painting and puts something to the surface, and it goes through the layers, and then it comes back, and then there's an ongoing conversation going on. That's the perfect scenario, maybe. So if I control that too much, it gets suffocated. There's no conversation.